Okay, this video is about Newton's second law, which is also known as the law of acceleration. Acceleration is a change in velocity, which could mean a change in speed, change in the direction, or a change in speed and direction. If you remember from Newton's first law, an object doesn't want to change its motion unless there are unbalanced forces on that object. So you could deduce from that unbalanced forces will cause an acceleration. I want to pause here and answer question number 1. Forces cause acceleration. So when the forces are unbalanced, or the net force is not zero, that means there's going to be an acceleration. The object is going to move, or it's going to change its movement. The acceleration is always in the same direction as the net force. So for example, in diagram A, the forces are balanced, so there's no acceleration. Diagram B, the forces are balanced too, and there's no acceleration. Diagram C, up and down is balanced, but left and right, there's more force to the right. So there's going to be an acceleration going to the right. In a diagram D, it looks like the force going down is bigger than the force going up. So there's going to be an acceleration going down. Pause here and answer question number 2. So what about mass? Does mass affect motion? Well, of course. More mass equals more inertia, or more resistance to the change in motion. For example, it's a lot easier to push a human out of your way than it is to push an elephant out of your way. Mass is measured in kilograms or grams. Kilogram is the standard unit that we use. Don't confuse it with volume, it's totally different, and also don't confuse it with weight. The difference between mass and weight: mass is the amount of matter in an object. It's also a measure of its inertia or laziness that an object shows when you try to change its motion. Where weight is the force on an object due to the acceleration of gravity. You'll definitely want to note that the acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 meters per second per second. That'll come in handy as you work through some problems. A mass and weight, while they are different, are directly proportional to each other. So when you increase the mass, you're also increasing the weight. That should make sense. Also, 1 kilogram of mass is going to equal 9.8 newtons of force. I'm going to pause here and answer question number 3. Mass resists acceleration. So the more mass we have, the more inertia we have, the more resistance to acceleration, or the resistance to the change in motion. In other words, the more mass, the less acceleration we're going to have. What that means is acceleration is then inversely proportional to the mass. So when one increases, the other decreases. A good example here, if you use the same amount of force in all 3 of these scenarios, and the first time you have 1 brick, it's going to push pretty easy. You're going to have a good acceleration. If you put another brick on top, it gets a little bit harder, but you use the same force, it's going to go half as fast. It's going to accelerate half as much. If you use 3 bricks, it'll accelerate 1/3 as much. Pause here and answer question number 4. So now we get to Newton's second law. This law links force, mass, and acceleration all together into one nifty little equation. The actual law states in words, the acceleration produced by a net force on an object is directly proportional to the net force, is in the same direction as the net force, and is inversely proportional to the mass of the object. That's a lot of words. I'm not going to make you remember those, but if you remember this equation, you'll be just fine. So in other words, the acceleration is equal to the force divided by the mass. There's some other equations to remember that too, or they might come in handy as you're finding different variables. The mass then is also equal to the force divided by the acceleration. Also, the force is equal to the mass times the acceleration. And a good way to remember this equation is either to pronounce this one fama, or switch the M and the A and it becomes your fam.